So this week opened up for me with a story about a woman being criminally charged for being topless in her own home. And it kind of went downhill from there. No surprise that this one comes to us from Utah, where Tilly Buchanan and her husband were installing insulation in their garage. So as you can imagine, they're all covered in itchy shit. So they take off some of their clothes to get the itchy shit off, and while Tilly is topless, her stepkids come bounding down the stairs. They're embarrassed because society tells them to be embarrassed. So Tilly decides to make a teaching moment out of it and tells them they shouldn't be any more embarrassed to see her chest than their father's. Well, the goddamn apparatus of state government in Utah never learned that lesson, apparently, and they filed criminal charges against her for lewdness involving a child, a Class A misdemeanor. If convicted, she'd be on the sex offender registry for the next 10 years for not being ashamed of her body and teaching her children a good lesson about gender equality. And here's the most fucked up part about this. If the kids had come across porn, or even if their parents had given it to them, nobody would have said a thing. It would have technically still been illegal, but it would have gone unpunished provided the topless woman was being objectified. And if you're tempted to write the story off by saying, well, sure, it's Utah, I'd like to remind you that nowhere is safe from misogyny. Like, how about my next story from British Columbia, known for, among other things, being significantly more progressive than Burkeville, Utah. This one involves a parade, an anti-abortion group, and little plastic fetuses. That's right. As children lined up along the parade route to celebrate the Chilliwack Harvest Festival, they gathered up candy from most of the floats and toy fetuses with graphic anti-abortion propaganda from one. And that's a fucked up thing to give children. But there is a silver lining to this story, which is that I now know you can buy little plastic fetuses, and craft time with Lucinda just got a lot more interesting. Hell, so did my Halloween decorations. Anyway, I've got one more news item for you this week, and just to prove this isn't a Utah problem or a Chilliwack problem, our next story comes from The Air. You might have seen this one. It's about a woman taking a cross-country flight on Virgin Atlantic who starts getting digital cat calls over the plane's in-flight messaging service. Apparently, some jackasses behind her took a liking and never graduated from the pulling on her pigtails level of flirtation. Well, after a few harassing and outright threatening messages, she sent a message back that read, quote, I work for a law firm that specializes in online sexual harassment. Enjoy being reported to the airline, end quote. And it turns out that ended it pretty quick. And as much as I like her strategy, I still prefer mine, which would have been loudly telling a flight attendant that was nowhere near me about the assholes in seats 23D through F that were stroking themselves to the in-flight messaging service. Anyway, with a small victory under our belt, I'll wrap up this week and hand you back over to Noah, Heath, and Eli.